Bryan Johnson, the
Hi.
legend himself. Thank you so much for welcoming me into your house. It's so kind of you to open up your house. And I do have a few questions
All right. Well,
for
I'm so
you
happy
today.
you're here at the house. We're gonna have a great night together.
Yes, could you tell us a little bit about your transition from business world into the wellness world and what did you learn along the way? And specifically, what did you wish you learned earlier?
In health and wellness, I guess I come from fields of engineering where there's generally more agreed upon principles. When you go about building something, most people agree that this piece fits here and this thing goes there. But in the world of health and wellness, nobody agrees about anything.
Thank you.
Everyone
Thank you.
disagrees with everyone. And so it's not a case that you can walk in and the scientific principles are just known. You
They're
are
kind of known, but everyone still argues about them.
Yes, it's an endless debate. And so if you're not a specialist, you look to authorities to say, can you please help me figure out what to do? And everyone disagrees. So that was the biggest difference.
Now the blueprint diet. Before we get into it, because it's very restrictive, it's very I don't want to say limiting, but it's very particular.
Yeah.
Could you tell me, does any of your family members enjoys the blueprint protocol?
I would say I find it actually really liberating. So a lot of people, they view my lifestyle and they view my health choices and they assume I'm in some kind of cage of my making. They assume I hate my food. They assume I must hate my life. And I've never been happier in my entire life. And so I feel freed up from all the decisions I'd made before. Like, you wake up in the morning, like, do you eat the croissant? You have a cookie in the lunch menu. Do you eat the cookie? At dinner, there's a brownie served. Do you have the brownie? Your new show drops. Do you watch one episode or four episodes? Do you have one glass of wine or four? And so all day long, you have to make all these really hard decisions. And I've just removed all those barriers where I now just have a system. And so I actually feel more at ease and I feel more liberated than I have my entire life. So for me, it's very expansive and liberating.
Okay. What about your family members? Do they enjoy it as much as you do?
I have three kids, and so two of them are like well, okay, so my oldest son is like somewhere in the middle. My second son is all in, so he's identical to me. And then my 14-year-old daughter is kind of like, Dad, you know, she's 14. So
Uh-huh.
that's how you would expect her to be,
Okay.
but we're working on it.
In general, from what you've gathered, you've been in this industry for how long now?
3 years.
3 years. From what you make of it, do you think the blueprint protocol is for everyone?
The principles we are establishing, which is sleep, a good diet, and exercise, do apply to everyone.
Powerful laws, you call it?
Yeah, power laws. Yeah, I
Power
mean,
law.
like basically, there's there's so many things we can agree upon, and there's fewer things so we agree upon many things. So, for example, getting a good night's sleep is good.
For everyone.
Everyone, yeah. Eating like whole foods that are clean, that's good. Uh, Doing exercise on a daily basis, that's also good. And so when you get into these small branched out conversations of like this thing and that thing, everyone fights endlessly. But really, the power laws of health are in the basic things we all agree upon we should be doing. So to me, it's just kind of backwards. We actually agree upon the basics. No one does them. So everybody wants to do the esoteric stuff and then fight about it. So it's kind of weird. It's like how humans like behave. So
And talk about gut health. How often do you test your stool, and is there any findings that you learned a lot about, and if you find that hugely beneficial, and if you're willing to share with others?
I test my microbiome every 6 months, and I have for the past 10 years. So I have a whole bunch of data. And everyone I know who's an expert in the microbiome looks at the results and they say, we have no idea what they mean. We have no idea how to change, like, we don't know what's good, what's bad. We don't know. So I just have a whole bunch of data. But like generally, I eat a lot of fiber. I take a few pre and postbiotics, and I do fermented foods. So there's a few things I do for the microbiome, but generally it's one of the emergent areas of health and wellness that I don't think people know yet what to measure, what to optimize for, and why.
Next thing I'm going to talk to you about is your legacy. How do you view what you do right now is going to leave the footprint in the future, and how it's going to change the future of the healthcare?
A couple years ago, I came upon this realization that I would rather be respected by the 25th century than I would for those who live right now. And that's because I've read so much history, and the people I admire the most were rarely respected in their time and place. They came up with ideas that were so far ahead of their time that they were typically ignored or called crazy or eccentric, and then their ideas became inevitable. And so in any given time, the future is always present. It's just a matter of who can see it. And so I really like the idea of holding myself to a standard of the 25th century, because then I can be much more open-minded about the things that are possible versus holding myself back and being under the weight of the crushing criticism that the present always offers people.
And I admire that so much about you, how you're just, I called you the human of 25th century when I tried to describe who you are to this one person who didn't know who you were. Um, okay, so who are those people that you admire and who inspire you?
It's, so it's Newton, and it's the founding fathers, and it's the Wright brothers, and it's Magellan, who sailed around the world, and it's the first summit of Everest. It's Amelia Earhart, who flew a plane across the Atlantic Ocean. It's people who, in their time and place, dare think and do unthinkable things.
Let's switch gears here one more time and get into supplementation. You talk about the quality of supplements, which is a gray area in the industry right now since they are unregulated. And could you talk a little bit more about some of the toxicity, specifically like because they're unregulated, and how what you endeavor now with your product is different from everything else?
So I'm new to food and supplements, and I had an idea. I guess I was told that food was dirty. I didn't know how dirty. Food is atrociously dirty.
Talk to
It
us.
is so bad. I'm alarmed. And so now I used to eat Blueprint because I imagined it was good for me. Now I eat Blueprint because I'm terrified of the world. It is so bad. And then if you even when you try to eat well, that's still really toxic food. And then I can imagine if you eat actually bad food, how bad it is. I understand why we have such a health crisis. So yeah, with Blueprint, we have sourced ingredients from all over the world, and we've sourced clean ingredients, and we publish our COAs. So we show exactly what's in the ingredients. So we show that it's clean. And so we're transparent across the entire process. So for example, we show even a lot of our imperfections. Like in any given supplement, if you have 2 or 3 ingredients in a supplement, let's say on the label it says 250 milligrams of vitamin C. What's actually in that batch is not 250 milligrams of vitamin C. It may be like 230 or 220 or 210 or 260 or 270. There's some room. Now, we publish all that data, so everyone knows everything about our stuff. It's all on display. And so I like this because it's just transparent. We are trying very, very hard to be clean. We're trying very, very hard to get better, but it's just fair. We just share it and people can see it and they make their decision. But right now, nobody shares. And I can tell you, people who do share are lying because we've tested their stuff. And so they share stuff, but it's not actually what we test. And so this is not to shame them. It's just to say that it is a hard game to play, and the consumer should benefit by knowing what they're getting.
I do wanted to thank you for what you do. I was just talking to Dr. Shai about you, how generous you are with sharing. I mean, you've invested so much energy into building your wealth, and now you're spending your wealth into creating all this research and sharing it generously for free. So, what is it? Blueprint.com. Where people can download some of the resources.
Yeah, it's protocol.bryanjohnson.com, and then also I'm writing a protocols book. So it will just be this easy guide where everything I've learned is in one book. It's basically what I wish I would have been given out of the womb of here are the basic principles of health.
How to navigate life.
Yeah, exactly. Do these things. And so it's going to be available to everybody soon.
Amazing. Talk to me about the Doty Food, and specifically which foods surprised you the most that were healthy, but you found out that they were actually not so clean.
Even so we were trying to build this product with broccoli. And so I just had this idea in my mind that broccoli might be a cleaner kind of product, but actually it was very high in heavy metals. So from vegetables to, let me think what else was high, from proteins, even ingredients like chicory root. We just got one back where we had this product ready to go and it came back as high. And so basically everything. What we're finding is we will go to suppliers and say, these are our specs for what we need for cleanliness of product, and many suppliers will say we don't want to do it. we don't want to test our stuff. We don't want to do this, so go somewhere else. And so
Yeah.
we've had a hard time finding suppliers that can are willing to play the game and meet our specs. And so it really is like, I don't want to sound like an alarmist. I also want to be transparent so people know this, because I want them to know what I know. It really is a bad situation for all of us.
Oh God, what's the solution here, doctor? Because look, I mean, you're the forefront, right? And most of us don't have access to that information, which is hard for you to get. And now that you do, what do you think the future is specifically for nutrition and food industry?
So we want to help, we want to share what we've learned with others, and we want to help other companies, because I don't think other companies are bad. I just think it's like, it's not something they've thought about, or it's not something that they've planned on doing. So it's just it's a cultural problem. And so I want to help companies know what to do so they can do it too. So we're launching Don't Die certification.
Oh my God,
So
where do I sign up?
yeah, so via just it's a, like there's certification like vegan and like Whole 360. We want a Don't Die certification that actually uses a
That's
lab.
for products, okay.
Exactly. They use a lab to say, like, when you have this product, it's been tested for these heavy metals. It's been verified that the nutritionals are what they say they are. So just really basic things like the label is what it says. So yeah, we're going to try to spread some goodness. So there's many companies who actually want to hit these specs of, cleanliness, but it's just hard. It's really hard to do.
Is there any food flavor or taste or some memory from your childhood that you miss and that you wish would be part of the Blueprint protocol?
I guess that kind of reminds me of the question, like, do I miss pizza, or do I miss donuts, or do I, because as a kid, that's what I ate.
Oh, yeah, you mentioned that.
Yeah, I
Share a
just,
little bit of that.
yeah, I mean, growing up in a small community, it was commonplace to frequently have pizza and donuts and soda and junk food and processed foods. That's just what we ate. I was in the sun all the time. I got a lot of sun damage on my skin. We didn't really prioritize sleep. Like you could just stay up late and wake up in the morning, no one really thought anything about it. So I never had a model of health. No one showed me, even like oral care.
You became one.
Yeah. So, I mean, uh, I guess, yeah, these basics are applicable to all of us. And if we could have a model of health just so it becomes a cultural norm, it will be so much easier for all of us. So I don't miss anything. So like the other day, someone gave me a chip, like it was like a Dorito or something. And they're like, do it. And I'm like, yeah. I'm like,
That's
no. And
not
they're like,
even good.
do it. And I'm like, no. So finally, like, just do it. I'm like, okay. So I ate a chip and it just tasted like gasoline. It was so bad. And so it was such a shocking experience that I used to be normalized to that where I actually enjoyed it. And now it's pretty unnerving that that's the kind of stuff that I would consume.
So funny, I'll share a little bit. I grew up the opposite way. I grew up on the farm eating only vegetables and the animals that our parents and our grandparents raised. And I would only have like processed foods for holidays. And it would be like something that I would
Yeah.
crave like once or twice a year because it was expensive. We couldn't afford that.
Yeah.
So for me, I could tell with my eyes closed whether it's like artificial or like like anything that has flavoring in it. I
Yeah.
can't take it. It just tastes synthetic to
Yeah.
me that I can't even deal with the flavors.
Yeah.
I'm just a filter for those things. And if you
Yeah.
need me to test anything,
Yeah.
yeah, I just don't like those at all. In terms of, you mentioned your children are on the borderline with
Yeah.
the blueprint, but is there any advice that you have for parents when it comes to healthy eating, habits for children?
Yeah. I do. So I would say adults, so not just parents, but adults generally, teach children the ways of don't die. So our children, the children in society, they got born into a time and place where we have a fighting chance to not die. Now, that is inconceivable to most people who live today because death has always been inevitable, and you propose that idea, it's unthinkable. Like, it's so offensive. It's like, no way. But this is actually the truth. And so it is fair to them that we give them the opportunity to play this new game that, like, we may or may not make it, but we definitely don't want to pass on these bad habits because it ruins their opportunity for this future, because it may be the most extraordinary future in the history of the galaxy. Like, we don't know. So I think it's important that we really try to pass the baton. We do things for ourselves, but also pass the baton for our kids so that they have the best
Any
opportunity to
advice
succeed.
on those, how to make the children eat healthier, specifically those who don't like healthy foods?
Uh, Kids will adapt to anything. And it's just like if I had children again, I would sit down all my kids, even the babies, like if the babies are 12 months old, and say, all right, kids, we are a family that prioritizes sleep. Everyone goes to bed, on time. Nobody gets up unless the house is on fire. Nobody gets up ever. And so we just do that. And so, I mean, kids are smart. Like even when they can't talk, they get it. You really can treat them with a level of expectation. And I would do that, and I would set the expectation for food. Like this is how we are as a family. We don't eat junk food. We don't have junk food in the family. It's just not something we do. And so kids are definitely very malleable. And so I would set the expectations, and I would do that with my family.
Do you want to have more children?
I'm open to having more kids. Yeah.
Is it part of your legacy? Like, is it part of the longevity? Like, how do you view that?
Well, I thought about I get so many requests to be a sperm donor that I thought about donating to a sperm bank and then just letting anybody do that. But then like I can imagine, in some number of years time, I've got a whole bunch of kids camping out in front of my house being like, "Daddy, take care of me." So, I mean, yes, I love children. I'm open to having more children. And I think that, yeah, that we may be going into a new, like, there's a whole bunch of concern about population collapse and things like that right now. And so I think as history has it, rarely are people correct in terms of what they worry about. The problems that emerge are typically different. So I think that we could be maybe walking into a boom time of fertility in children.
You're so brilliant. You have such a big heart. I think you should have more children. All right, switching gears here, stress management. A lot of people look at you and they think he's got all this money, he has
Yeah.
no stress. Could you talk about me up to me about your stress levels and some of the stress management techniques that you love and you wish you'd learned earlier?
I have there's a lot of stress. So I'm an entrepreneur. I'm currently building about 5 companies at the same time. So I have multiple full-time jobs. I'm a father, and I have like doing my own health because we're doing this protocol is a full-time job. So I've never been busier in my entire life. I've never had more responsibility. Also, I've never been more relaxed. And so I would say it's probably because I get great sleep. I exercise every day. I make my health my number one priority. It's very counterintuitive. Most people think if they're ambitious in life and they're going after really important things, that you have to grind yourself. You have to sacrifice sleep and you can't work out because you have to work every waking moment. And I think that just getting the basics right just helps you uh, weather the stress in ways that becomes manageable.
Last question from one of my viewers. What do you plan to do with your consciousness? And if you plan to, what, cryo freeze it? I don't even know those terms, but I think you do.
Yeah, I mean, so this is the coolest question. I love that this came up. So imagine if you travel back in time a million years and you're hanging out with Homo erectus. That's who lived a million years ago. They have an axe in their hand, and it can grunt. I don't think they had language. And you ask them, where's food, where's shelter, where's danger? You're going to listen to them because they know something you don't. But if you say, like, tell me why you're excited for the future of our evolution of our species, they're not going to be able to tell you that one day you're going to hold a little pill in your hand, you'll swallow it, and it just is going to solve infection. Or you'll have this magic box that just beams you around the world so you can speak live to any human on this planet at any moment. Or like all the other modern marvels. And so the contemplation is we may be a caveman right now. Like we may be so primitive and so limited in our ability to imagine, we have no idea. And that's why I care about Don't Die. Like, people look at this and they say, he's not living life or whatever. But I'm looking at this from a few 100-year perspective. Like I think in my lifetime, we may have this jumping off point as a species where we're giving birth to super intelligence, and it changes the fabric of reality beyond our comprehension. We can't even imagine it. So for me, I'm rolling the dice and I'm saying the future is likely to be so extraordinary. I don't want to miss out on that. And like right now, whatever is being offered right now for my pleasure, whether it be junk food or stimulants or staying up late, it doesn't even compare to how extraordinary the future could be.
Well, I admire you for that. With that, three things that you are, I don't know, learning the most and excited about the future the most. And maybe you could share something about the brain and something that Elon is working on, and if you want to be part of that in some way or another.
Yeah, so I've been doing the health stuff. I also recently made 3 investments. One is in a company that's trying to use thermodynamics to do computation. Typically it's been in like silicon transistors, but now using actual thermodynamic processes. So that's cool, like a new way to do compute. Two is a company that's building brand new chips that does they allow LLMs, these large language models, the AI, to scale much faster and cheaper. So it brings down the cost by 10x. Because right now, AI is blocked by how you can build the chips that processes these models. And then the third is a company that's doing gene therapy. And so I, when I sold Braintree Venmo, I started making investments because we have the ability to predictably engineer atoms and molecules and organisms. We can engineer every level of reality. So from the bits and atoms to our digital reality, we can program everything. We have admin access to all of reality. And that is wild to think. So I've been investing upon that whole stack. So we can create any food, we can create any medicine, we can create any experience, we can create any consciousness, we can create any object, we can create anything. And so it will just take us time to figure out how to create those things, but we now have the actual knowledge of how to do it. And so that to me is the most exciting thing. That's why I'm so excited about the future, because it's right there. And if we could actually realize this, we may like stop, like we may shift our focus from these other things to these new things, which might be the coolest thing ever.
Thank you for serving as a role model for so many. Yes, I love how you're shifting the mindset from focusing on the junk food and focusing on the bright future, and how excited you are about the future. Thank you so much for this interview and for being with us. Anything you'd like to share, like where to find you?
Yeah, I hang out on all social channels. I'm on YouTube, Instagram, Talk, X, everywhere. So yeah, I try to be useful in the world. Everything I've done
Your
is
website one more time, the free one?
protocol.bryanjohnson.com.
Brian with a Y.
That's right. Thank you. Yes. Yeah. And then tonight we're going to do a don't die dinner. So I'm excited to hear what your takeaway is after the dinner. Many people report it's one of the most meaningful experiences of their life. So I hope it works.
Again, thank you for
Yeah.
inviting me. Thank you. All right. Bye.
Bye guys.